heard of Kobe, LeBron, and Shaq, but what if I told you there are NBA legends who balled just as hard and got almost none of the credit? One guy dropped 50 points for 4 different teams and somehow never made an all-star team. These are the 10 most underrated NBA players of the 2002 and number 1. He helped win championships, made Olympic history, and still barely gets his flowers. We're not talking about random bench players here. These guys were primetime talents, walking buckets, defensive anchors, and playmakers with legit superstar moments. Yet somehow their names rarely come up in the conversation. Whether it's because of media bias, bad timing, or just being overshadowed, they never got their full respect. Let's start with a guy who had one of the deadliest crossovers of all time and could cook anyone off the bench, Jamal Crawford. He scored over 20,000 points in his career, won 6th Man of the Year 3 times, and still never made a single All-Star team. That's wild. He wasn't just a spark plug, he was the entire explosion. His handles were legendary, and he could break ankles on command. Crawford once dropped 50 points in a game for 4 different teams, something almost nobody else has done. He made every team better, and yet somehow stayed under the radar his whole career. Next is Andre Miller. He didn't have the flash, he didn't have the highlight reels, but he had basketball IQ through the roof and was one of the smartest point guards the league has ever seen. He's top 15 all-time in assists, quietly dishing out dimes for over a decade. He wasn't fast, he wasn't athletic, but he could manipulate a defense like a chessboard. Coaches loved him, teammates trusted him, and yet fans barely even noticed. Then there's Monta Ellis. At his peak, Monta was like Allen Iverson light, lightning quick, fearless, and able to get to the rim at will. In 2010, he averaged 25 points per game. He was the heart and soul of the Warriors before Steph Curry took over. People forget how dominant he was. He once led the league in minutes played, carried an offense by himself, and had that killer mid-range game that defenders couldn't stop. He never made an all-star team either, not once. That's insane. Zach Randolph was pure grit, a throwback to the old school bruisers. He didn't jump high, he didn't run fast, but in the post, he'd absolutely punish you. He turned Memphis into a playoff powerhouse with that grit and grind identity. His footwork was elite, his touch was soft, and he was one of the best offensive rebounders in the game. In the 2011 playoffs, he averaged 22 and 10 and knocked out the number 1 seeded Spurs, and nobody talks about it. He was Jokic before Jokic in terms of playmaking from the elbow minus the flash. Joe Johnson was smooth as silk. They called him ISO Joe for a reason. You needed a bucket late in the game, he'd cook you. 7 All-Star appearances might sound like a lot, but even with those, people barely acknowledge how elite he really was. He was the centerpiece of the Hawks for years, led them to multiple playoff runs, and had one of the coldest handles in crunch time. He's tied for the most game-winning buzzer beaters in NBA history, 5. But somehow, his name still gets overlooked in every all-time conversation. Rashard Lewis was way ahead of his time, a 6'20" forward who could shoot threes like a guard. He was a key piece of that 2009 Magic team that went to the finals. Without him spacing the floor, Dwight Howard wouldn't have had all that room to dominate inside. Lewis could post up, shoot from deep, and defend multiple positions. Back then, the league hadn't fully embraced stretch 4, so his impact flew under the radar. But looking back, he helped shape the direction of modern basketball. LaMarcus Aldridge might be the quietest 7-time All-Star in league history. He gave you 20 and 10 like clockwork and had the smoothest mid-range fadeaway since Tim Duncan. He was a monster in the playoffs for the Blazers and later became a steadying force for the Spurs. During the 2010 second, only 2 players averaged over 19 points per game for 9 straight seasons: LeBron James and LaMarcus Aldridge. That's elite company, and yet when you ask fans to name dominant power forwards, his name rarely comes up. Deron Williams at his peak was in the same conversation as Chris Paul. People forget that. From 2007 to 2011, Deron was unstoppable in pick and roll. He led the Jazz deep into the playoffs and was one of the best two-way point guards in the game. His vision, shooting, and physicality were unmatched. He had multiple 20-point, 10-assist seasons and even ran the offense for Team USA. But injuries derailed his prime, and by the time he got to Brooklyn, he just wasn't the same. Still, during that 4-year window, he was easily a top 5 point guard and maybe even top 3. Lou Williams is another guy who never got the respect he truly deserved. 3 sixth man of the
year trophies, thousands of points off the bench, and a certified bucket no matter the matchup. Lou wasn't just good, he was efficient, clutch, and fearless. In 2018, he dropped 50 points on the Warriors with KD, Steph, and Clay on the floor from the bench. That's not normal. He embraced the sixth-man role and changed what that position meant. He wasn't just a substitute, he was a closer. But number one on this list, Pau Gasol. Two-time champion, six-time All-Star, Olympic gold medalist, and still somehow overlooked his entire career. He was the perfect complement to Kobe Bryant, skilled in the post, a great passer, a smart defender. Without Pau, Kobe doesn't get those last two rings. Even Kobe said it himself. Gasol played a major role in some of the biggest games of the 2002, and yet he never got the credit he deserved. Only 4 All-NBA selections, no defensive teams, and his name never comes up when people talk about great big men of the era. That's just wrong. So yeah, these guys may not have had the flashiest careers or the biggest sneaker deals, but what they did on the court deserves more respect. If you think this list was wild, wait until you see the 10 undrafted players who went on to break NBA records and drop 60-point games. Tap here to see the ones who were counted out from day one and still made history.